has number 5 Notre Dame battling number 8 Indiana, the game in South Bend. Then on Saturday the 21st, number 4 Penn State plays host to number 10 SMU, number 16 Clemson at number 3 Texas, number 6 Ohio State at home against number 7 Tennessee. The second round starts on Tuesday, December 31st. That New Year's Eve has number 3 Boise State taking on the SMU Penn State winner. 3 games on New Year's Day. Number 4 Arizona State gets the Clemson Texas winner. Number 1 Oregon faces the Tennessee Ohio State victor. Number 2 Georgia gets the Indiana Notre Dame winner. Monday Night Football, the Bengals beat the Cowboys 27-20. Both teams now 5-8 with the result. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
I juggle a lot. And managing constipation with belly pain from my irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C, with laxatives and fiber isn't enough. My doctor recommended a way to get ahead of it. Then I said yes to Linzess.
Linzess linaclotide is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Talk to your doctor and learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS.
No way football is playing in the fall and winter.
Because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
We are live right here on Football Full Circle. That is FFC, all a part of the SportsGrid Radio Network and Sirius XM Channel 159. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. We begin by recapping the Monday night finale of week number 14. A wild and wacky game in Dallas that was pretty emblematic, Scott, of two teams that were facing off in a game to end out week 14 that have had disappointing seasons, falling well short of expectation, and put on display some of the reasoning why. We'll recap what happened between the Bengals and the Cowboys, what, if anything, it means the rest of the way, and then, of course, look at a new week, week 15 on the horizon around the NFL, and those big news and notes you need around the league, and maybe a former NFL star in the coaching ranks in what might be next in college football. We're talking Bill Belichick to North Carolina, potentially in just a little bit as well.
Yeah, and that still really is amazing, right? I mean, that has failure written all over it. But okay, you know what? I had a hard enough time running my life versus running someone else's. We had a bunch of games this week in the NFL, Ben, where you kind of got what you expected you were going to get. Jacksonville, Tennessee, just horrible. Giants, Saints, just horrible. And while the Cowboys and Bengals aren't quite at that level, I mean, you saw ineptitude last night. The Leon Lett Part 2 written all over for Dallas fans. Parsons walking off the field in complete disgust. I mean, it was two, losing football teams who not only are losing, but had expectations realistically to be playoff teams. And in the case of the Bengals, Super Bowl caliber teams. And even though they won last night, they may have won the battle, but to me, they lost the war. They didn't play particularly well. Defensively, they did for the first time in a few weeks, but just mistake after mistake after mistake. And it was only Dallas making one more mistake that gave the game to the Bengals.
Made enough stops, I guess you could say, that Cincy defense against the backup in Cooper Rush that had 2 really good weeks, and maybe that has run out a little bit as well at the quarterback spot. But really, Scott, it wasn't just the offense or the defense. It was the special teams last night at the Star. Game tied at 20-all, under 2 minutes remaining in regulation. Dallas's defense makes a stand, forcing a Cincy punt that was blocked. Nick Vigil of the Cowboys bursting through the line, getting a hand on it. ball flies as it was deflected past the line of scrimmage, meaning if the Cowboys touch it, it's a live football. And the Cowboys touched it. Amani Oruwariye tried to recover the deflected / blocked punt and was unable to do so, in essence, muffing it, meaning when the Bengals fell on the football, they retained possession. And a few plays later, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, 40-yard touchdown strike where Jamar Chase in the open field, as good as you will find. It was the game-winning touchdown. The Bengals win 27-20, covering as a 5.5-point road favorite. Scott, in Dallas, the total of 50.5 does stay under. Two teams that are now each 5-8. We thought bare minimum those records would be flipped after they met in Week 14 to end out on Monday night.
Yeah, this was supposed to be one of the great games, right? Cincinnati and Dallas Monday night. A couple things here, Ben. It is quirky because if you think about it, they blocked the punt, right? So who touched the football last? Dallas, But because the block obviously came behind the line of scrimmage, it's not a live ball. If you touch the ball, Dallas, after the line of scrimmage, it is a live ball. So did he not realize that? Probably not. But I will say this in fairness to him. This is not Leon Lett, even though the results are the same. Leon Lett, if you watch that game on Thanksgiving many moons ago, field goal blocked, it rolls, and it's just kind of in the snow, lying at the 1 or 2 yard line, ready to be blown dead. And here comes Leon, for whatever reason, sliding on the snow, on the grass, and knocking into the ball. The ball got blocked, but it was going down the field, and he was in a decent position to catch the ball and run.
Right.
So his play, I don't think, was just, oh, my God, what are you doing touching the ball? His play was, I'm trying to catch the ball, but, when you got shoulder pads on and everything else, it just ricocheted off his shoulder pads. He made basically a bad catch. But if he doesn't make that play, that ball could go another 10 yards down the field, and even though it was blocked, it would have been a 35 or so yard punt, which is not the worst thing in the world. So he was just trying to make a play on it versus Leon just doing something dumb. So I feel bad for the guy. I really do, because he was just trying to do the smart thing. I'm not going to let this ball roll, and bounce 10, 15 yards down the field. What's the point of blocking a punt? So he couldn't catch it, had a bump off his shoulder pads.
Yeah, Scott, Mike McCarthy explaining after the game what he saw on the botched block punt and what Amani Oruwariye was maybe thinking in that moment. He was a gunner on the outside trying to block and set up the return that was called by the special teams coordinator. Heard the crowd cheer, turned right around, live football coming right at his face. And as you said, trying to make a play, just unfortunately did not make it. You would like a better understanding, perhaps out of the player or at least the sideline and the staff of that situation, if a punt is blocked and everybody yelling out, Peter, 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 as in get the F away from it. That was not communicated in time. It did end up costing Dallas the game. But Scott, it cost them the game last night. Does it really matter? That is kind of the debate here, because we had two teams entering the finale of Week 14 that we did not expect to be in these positions. Entering the year, the Bengals and the Cowboys, surefire playoff teams that would probably win at least double-digit games throughout the regular season. Cincy is now 5-8. The Cowboys are now 5-8. Sure, it snapped a 2-game win streak for Dallas trying to win their second consecutive at home. That did not happen. But Scott, it was not the game with the implications we expected for either of these two teams entering the season. In fact, they have fell well short of those expectations in the preseason.
Yeah, and Dallas made Ben have the excuse, well, our star quarterback got hurt. But they were on the path, before Dak Prescott got hurt. I don't know if things really would be any different, honestly, record-wise. I think it would be probably the same. Maybe you could make the case even worse. Cincinnati, to me, is the one where it's just like, wow, so many opportunities, so many close games, all the expectations coming in. They franchised T. Higgins. They know in their mind, apparently, that they're not going to re-sign him, but they franchise him. They don't trade him like they could have. They say, let's go all in this year. Got a good team. Joey B is finally healthy. they're the ones to me out of the two. If you had to pick one, that would be a little bit more disappointing because I think they had the potential to go a lot further. They got Tennessee next week. I mean, that should be a win for them. Right now, you're talking 6-8, but they would have to run the table just to have a chance. And I didn't see anything last night that made me think, they're capable of running the table. I mean, they were very, very fortunate to get that win. Finally got some breaks go their way, but they shouldn't have needed breaks, to win that football game. Right. There was a reason why they were 5.5-point road favorite. Now, I get it. They covered, good job by them, just like good job by the Dolphins. Had no business covering, with the late touchdown there in overtime. So they did do that, but, you come away from it saying that should have been 37-20, 37-17 if the Bengals really were worth anything. So I'm not further encouraged by, that performance last night.
Yeah, Scott, neither team, neither the Cowboys nor the Bengals, mathematically eliminated, although their hopes of earning a playoff berth are very, very long at this point. Cincinnati is 5-8, trailing the three teams in the wild card standings right now in the AFC. The Ravens, the Chargers, and the Broncos all at 8-5 by 3 games with only 4 remaining. And there are some teams sandwiched in between the wild card teams currently and even where the Bengals stand. We'll talk more Cincinnati. We'll talk more Dallas. Is there anything left playing for the Cowboys? That we shall discuss. Up next, live right here on Football Full Circle. Then the news ahead of a new week in the NFL. Next.
Don't look like an idiot at work. Know your stuff. Football and everything else.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Police arrested a suspect on Monday in the brazen Manhattan killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg.
This update brought to you by Verizon. Authorities say a quick-thinking McDonald's employee in Pennsylvania alerted authorities to a customer who was found with a weapon, mask, and writings linking him to the ambush. The suspect, identified as 26-year-old Luigi Mangione, had a gun believed to be the one used in last Wednesday's shooting of Thompson, as well as writings suggesting anger with corporate America. A Manhattan jury has cleared Daniel Penny of criminal wrongdoing in the chokehold death of Jordan Neely on a crowded subway. Panelists acquitted Penny of criminally negligent homicide, which could have put him behind bars for up to 4 years, in Neely's chokehold death aboard a crowded Uptown F train in May 2023. Manslaughter, the top charge against Penny, was tossed on Friday after jurors twice said they couldn't reach a unanimous verdict.
I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Let's face it, winter can be a hard season. It's cold pretty much all the time. Blizzard. You have to shovel. Another blizzard. You slip on ice. But you know what makes winter suck a little less? Getting a free phone. Join Cricket Nation and get a free Samsung Galaxy A15 5G. Ooh, ouch. Welcome to enjoying more. Welcome to Cricket Nation. Smile, you're on Cricket.
Cricket 5G is not available everywhere. Must open a new line on the $60 unlimited plan. First month service charge and tax due at sale. Fees, terms, and other restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds, which could be life-changing. I mean, you could put that money towards concert tickets for your daughter to see that singer who sings about painful breakups. And one song will inspire your little beauty to break up with that beast she's dating, Brian. Instead, she'll date someone who's nice and worthy of her love, not someone who addresses you and your spouse as bro. And it's all because you could save money switching at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states.
Fall is almost here.
It's time to stow the lawnmower and get ready for all that glorious action coming your way. Stay tuned to SportsGrid for all the strategies, angles, and info you need to get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
We are live right here on Football Full Circle. It is FFC. To end out Week 14, a maddening Monday Night Football game in Dallas if you are the Cowboys. A blocked punt that actually ended up leading to a Bengals game-winning touchdown. Scott, both teams entered this season with sky-high expectations, at least bare minimum, reaching the postseason and regular season success. It has really been anything but. As you shared, the Cowboys probably have a better excuse. Their starting quarterback in Dak Prescott, injured for a majority of this season. But even with Dak, it wasn't necessarily a pretty picture. The Cincinnati Bengals, when they have been great, Joe Burrow has been healthy. When they have not in the first 4 years of his NFL career, Burrow has not been healthy. He is this year, and yet they are just a 5-8 team. And Scott, again, last night you could see why these teams are 3 games below 500. Dallas making costly mistake after costly mistake, and the backup quarterback in Cooper Rush not overly efficient with the football. The Bengals elite offensively. None of the blame this year on Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase or the young rookie running back in Chase Brown. The defense has tagged behind, but they weren't terrible a night ago. Scott, when you look at the final box score, Joe Burrow, 369 yards, 3 touchdowns, 177 of those yards to Jamar Chase. 2 of the 3 touchdowns to Jamar Chase. Chase Brown, the rookie running back out of Illinois, 58 rushing yards, 65 receiving yards, and a touchdown as well. The offense has continued to put up the production. It's just been a Bengals defense that has failed them in the most significant of stages this year. Scott, if the Bengals were 8-5 and not 5-8, there's a good chance that Joe Burrow is the front runner to win the NFL MVP award. 3,706 yards, most in the National Football League, 33 touchdowns, most in the NFL. It's just that they're a 5-8 team and not 8-5 or better.
Yeah. The weird and the irony of it all, though, Ben, is when you look at things and you wonder, where do things go wrong for the Bengals? You could point to game number 1 against the New England Patriots where they couldn't score. So the offense has been great. We're going to blame this season on the defense, but in reality, it's like if you have at least one, and they have a few, but if you had one game where you said, man, we shouldn't have lost that game, it's against New England at home to start the season, right, when the offense wasn't there. So I don't know if this is enough to get, the coach fired. Maybe Cincinnati, because I'm not a big fan, even though I'm a Nebraska guy, but I'm not a big fan of the coaching staff, we'll just say, of Cincinnati. And so maybe they're losing the battle but winning the war. Who knows? But it is strange. You finally get the offense clicking. And like I said, T. Higgins, this could be a different team next year. If they don't re-sign T. Higgins, and I don't know why they would, if they weren't willing to re-sign him, heading into this season, franchising him and everything else, unless they franchise him again, but that would be prohibitive. So this might be the year like they had their opportunity. It's going to be 1 or 2 games maybe too late for them. Like I said, they got Tennessee next week, and I'm sure, Ben, it's going to be like, well, we're still mathematically alive, but, it would take a minor miracle. You would need Denver. We keep on waiting for Denver to fall apart, whether you're a Colts fan or Dolphins fan or Bengals fan here. But the Broncos haven't, at 8-5, and they're favored again this week. So you're hoping for them to be realistically the one that comes back to the pack, but so far it hasn't happened. So I'm guessing in the AFC in particular, the top 7 teams right now, they're the top 7 teams that are going to make the playoffs.
I would agree with you, Scott. Maybe a change in the divisional race here or there between the Steelers and the Ravens. But we already have 2 divisions clinched within the AFC. The Chiefs in the West, the Bills in the East. Again, the Bengals looking up at those 3 teams in the AFC wildcard spots right now, all at 8-5 by 3 games. They were swept by the Ravens, so make it 4. They lost their game this year against the Chargers, so make that a 4-game difference. The Bengals do have the Broncos week 17, that game at home in Cincy. The Bengals actually have been much better on the road than they have at home this year. So again, not mathematically eliminated, but the math is not great in favor of Cincinnati being a postseason team within the AFC. You know who the math is favoring? That of Jamar Chase, who can point at this season, the performance last night, Scott, walk to Mike Brown's office in the offseason and say, you thought you could get me for $35 million last year, like Justin Jefferson's deal? The price of that going way up. Scott, for the cap, that is for sure. He's going to save $40 million now. And again, the Bengals' mismanagement of their wide receiver talent at times in the last few years could doom this franchise moving forward. We shall see. Those are off-season conversations. Scott, I wouldn't say I was rooting for the Cowboys last night, but from a content perspective, it would have been fun to see Dallas win. And why I say that is because it would have been a 3rd consecutive victory for this Cowboys team that would have put them at 6-7. And their chance, maybe, of seeing the postseason in the NFC would have been better than even the Bengals right now at 5-8. Mike McCarthy, in large part for this whole season, has been a lame duck head coach, where that was the expectation, especially after Dak Prescott was injured for the remainder of the year. Would a 6-7 Dallas team, winners of 3 straight, had guys like us, Scott, starting to talk about playoff aspirations for the Cowboys? Of course, it doesn't seem to be a point now as they fall to 5-8, 3 games behind Washington. But still, Scott, it would have been fun.
Yeah, and they would have listened. Good news, bad news is they have Philadelphia, Washington still on the schedule, but you want that, in the case of Dallas, because those are the teams you're trying to catch, obviously, especially Washington. So you want to be able to play the team that's in front of you, whereas obviously they are a good team. But and they were starting to sell that, Ben. There was a little bit of buzz. Okay, if we run the table, we're still alive. You heard Jerry Jones finally go after a game and be all excited after last week and throwing this, if we can run the table, we're in. So it would have made for good TV. I'm sure they're going to be on national television, or at least they would have been had they been mathematically live, but that basically goes all up in smoke.
Yeah, Scott, it could have been something because they end the regular season against the Commanders. They already beat Washington in the first matchup, so there could have been a path. Now that path is a little bit off the tracks. We'll go elsewhere around the NFL. Up next, live right here on Football Full Circle.
There's smart.
And there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here.
And win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
And now let's go to the big game of the year. Up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
1939, the National Football League Championship at the Dairy Bowl in Wisconsin. The Green Bay Packers shut out the New York Giants 27-0.
Len Bonham's long pass was intercepted by Svensson for the Packers, and Giant hopes a shot.
For Green Bay, it was their 5th championship in the last 10 years. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
Chinese researchers have created a robot that can identify plants just by touching them. Mimicking the delicate touch of human skin, identifying plant species with 97% accuracy, sensing moisture and texture machine vision can't see. The goal? An army of robot farm workers tirelessly monitoring, fertilizing, and applying pesticide to individual plants 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, increasing crop yields. Even identifying dangerous plant species.
That would be poison ivy.
Follow me at G. Capalbo on X, and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
The early line.
I'm watching Atlanta defensively last week, and they were hitting Herbert left and right. If that defense shows up here against Minnesota and does that to Sam Darnold, you can get the Sam Darnold version of Kirk Cousins last week with 4 interceptions. So I think Atlanta is very much alive to not only cover, but win this game outright.
It's the early line with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Weekdays, 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go,
there you are.
Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge
anywhere, even while the wife's talking to you.
if you've got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
When 1 week in the National Football League ends, a new one is never far away. Scott, Week 15 is on the horizon. Just 4 more weeks of the National Football League regular season. 4 full weeks. Bye weeks are largely over. We've got a lot of action the rest of the way around the NFL. And with action, divisional races, playoff implications, postseason seeding, comes some drama. He's got some interesting words yesterday from Brandon Graham, veteran edge rusher for the Philadelphia Eagles on his weekly radio show that he does for WIP there in the city of brotherly love. He was talking about this Birds team that has won 9 straight games, is 11-2, in pole position in the NFC East, challenging the Lions for the best record and the best team in the NFC and that number 1 overall seed in the playoff picture. And yet, Scott, after a narrow escape from Carolina on Sunday in Philadelphia, it wasn't the most prolific passing day for the Eagles. Some more drama follows this team. A.J. Brown was critical of the passing attack of Philly on Sunday. Jalen Hurts only threw for 108 yards. In fact, in the last 3 wins for the Eagles, Hurts has thrown for fewer than 180 yards in all 3 wins. And yet they are still winning. So Brandon Graham was asked about that, was detailing the relationship between Hurts and Brown, and basically called A.J. Brown out, saying if you are going to be critical, you need to make sure you are doing so in the right way, and kind of hinted, Scott, at the idea there is a strife in the relationship between quarterback Jalen Hurts and his number 1 receiver, A.J. Brown. He walked back some of those comments later. Nick Sirianni has had to speak about what Brandon Graham said yesterday. Scott, for the life of me, though, a team that's 11-2 winning 9 straight games, you would think this team wouldn't have any drama within the locker room. And yet the Eagles seem to certainly have some.
Yeah, 2 things, right? It's a continued knock with Nick Sirianni, right? Only Nick Sirianni can have an 11-2 football team and have trouble on the sidelines. I mean, it's crazy, right? I mean, you would think everyone would be so happy. The numbers are there. With A.J. Brown, they're undefeated playing this year. Without him, they're 1-2. They average a good 10 points more a game when he's playing in those 3 games that he didn't play. So it is there. But, they're winning, so you should be happy. I heard his comments. I get it. It's just, I don't know what it is over the last several years. It's been a few years here, but the wide receiver position is the prima donna position in the NFL. Clearly, it just is. And, I know it's a run versus a pass, but I've always said, Ben, when they do this push-tush, and you got Jalen Hurts getting all these touchdowns, I said, I know this sounds goofy, but it's got to be a little unsettling. People are, they're envious. They want to score, right? A.J. Brown wants to score. The running backs want to score. And I just can't help but think eventually that's going to start ticking some of these guys off a little bit. And maybe it is with A.J. Maybe they say, listen, you can throw the ball at the 1-yard line. I can get, 5 more touchdowns, and add to my resume here and next contract or whatever the case may be. But it's just, it's to me, ultimately it's a knock on Sirianni because he should be reading this guy the riot act, just shutting him up, and they should be feeding the ball. It goes back to the old Keyshawn Johnson days when I used to cover the Jets with my boy Wayne Forbett. Throw me the damn ball. It's true. Get him the ball. Throw the ball a little bit more. But I did hear the comments and I saw the comments from Graham. As you said, he walked them back a little bit. I didn't think they were over the top crazy. It was just, kind of maybe revealing a little bit too much inside that locker room.
Yeah, absolutely. And Scott, this is not the first time that despite success, A.J. Brown has said something about how he is not seeing the football or as many targets as necessary. You are correct. The diva position in the National Football League, it is that top target. It is that number 1 wide receiver. And so for that essence, I kind of love it for A.J. Brown. This is not a guy that is performative or does it when it helps him. He does it always. He commits to the bit. It is not a bit. It is a lifestyle for A.J. Brown. Scott, what really makes me chuckle is the fact that even as the passing offense has taken a step back, I mentioned Jalen Hurts has thrown for fewer than 180 yards in 3 straight games, 3 straight wins, by the way, including that big Sunday night blowout of the LA Rams in SoFi. Hurts threw for 179 yards that game and a touchdown. A.J. Brown had 109 of the 179 and the only touchdown. That was 3 weeks ago. And he still is not pleased despite a Philly team that is 11-2. A little bit more on that conversation and elsewhere around the National Football League up next here on FFC.
The Winning Edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. Former New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick has been rumored to be a candidate for the North Carolina Tar Heels' vacant head coaching position. The team moving on from longtime coach Mac Brown. Belichick has a lengthy resume, including the most Super Bowl wins as an NFL coach, but he's never been the head coach of a college program. Belichick confirmed that he's spoken with the organization.
As a pro coach, you always go back every year and go to different schools and look at their players and see their programs and learn from those coaches and their situations as well. So, I've had a chance this year to take a longer look at college football during the college season as opposed to in the spring from the draft perspective. I've had an opportunity to talk to Chancellor Roberts, and, we've had a couple of good conversations, so we'll see how it goes.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Get even more savings this holiday season by becoming a Milo's Rewards member. Don't miss new member deals dropping every week, like $15 off a purchase of $50 or more on select Bounty, Charmin, and Puffs paper products. Plus, get free standard shipping with Silver Key status. Just one more way Lowe's is here to help you shop, save, and enjoy the holidays. Join for free today. Milo's Rewards program subject to terms and conditions. Visit Lowe's.com/terms for details. Subject to change. Exclusions and more terms apply. Visit Lowe's.com/shipping terms for details.
Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the propane tank on your grill first before hosting a tailgate.
Let's fire up. Here, let me try. Seriously? You didn't check the propane? Who wants chips?
Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds.
Salt and vinegar?
You're in good hands with Allstate.
Savings vary. Subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Days are getting cooler.
The shadows are getting longer.
You know what that means.
It's football weather. So bundle up and keep it here for all the latest strategies and gridiron information.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. So, Scott, we were just talking about maybe some drama internally with the Philadelphia Eagles. It all leads to a huge Week 15 slate. Nobody on the bye. We've got a full slate Sunday, a great game on Thursday. We'll take some early looks at the lines for Week 15 in just a matter of moments. But, Scott, the Eagles in a big one on Sunday, the Commonwealth Battle in the Keystone State in Philadelphia. The Eagles, a current 5.5-point favorite against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I will tell you this, when the odds open up, I'm going to be keeping an eye on A.J. Brown's number for a multitude of reasons. One, the fact that he has expressed his displeasure with the offensive game plan. Funny how those things work. You try to get your number one wide receiver involved the ensuing week. But also, Scott, Saquon Barkley in his chase for history is on pace right now to pass Eric Dickerson for the single-season rushing yards record in the history of the NFL. Dickerson set the number with the LA Rams back in 1984, 2,105. Saquon Barkley, 1,628, I believe it is, at this moment. Well on pace, but Scott, the Steelers' fourth best rushing defense in the NFL. So if Philly is going to win their 10th consecutive at home over the in-state foes in the Steelers, maybe it's not Saquon for once. It's a big A.J. Brown day.
Yeah, this might be the best week in the NFL, or at least this is the quintessential week, right? We got a terrific Thursday night game, which is not, often the case. We got five 4 o'clock Eastern time or 4:30 games on Sunday. We got the 2 Monday night football games this week. They're actually staggered by a half an hour. We'd like it to be an hour, but you know what? At least they staggered them, a half hour. And you got really 2, maybe even 2.5, if you want to call them monster games at 4 o'clock with the Buffalo-Detroit game as well. So, but back to this one. Yeah, you wonder, Ben, he's thrown his insults towards towards Jalen Hurts' way before. We saw that last year a little bit, right? But you wonder if really maybe it's indirectly, supposed to be going to Saquon Barkley, or at least the jealousy. Because when you talk Philadelphia now, what are you talking? You're talking Saquon Barkley. Will he set the all-time rushing record, right? So maybe a little jealousy is kicking in there. Let's throw the ball a little bit more. I'm supposed to be the main guy. So you're right about the props angle. We've seen this happen 1,000 times. Guy complains. If the offensive coordinator is smart, you know what? All right, let's keep this guy happy. Let's throw him the football a little bit more. So I would be more inclined to go with A.J. Brown's numbers versus Saquon's, but they were offering a prop over 4-1 with Saquon break the record a couple of weeks ago. I said, you know what, it's worth a shot.
Yeah.
Just because you never know if they want to continue to pound him the football, he'll get it. So, But this week, I think it would be an A.J. Brown week.
That number now, Scott, plus 250, down by $1.50. Let me correct myself. Wow. 1,623 current rushing yards for Saquon Barkley, but of course, less than 400 away with 4 games to go. Very much on pace. If he plays in all 4, and Philly needs Saquon Barkley in all 4 games, that we shall see by the time they get to the end of the regular season in what is at stake. There is a chance, though, Scott, that Philadelphia could be tied for the top spot in the NFC by the end of Week 15. They're a 5.5-point home favorite, although we know how good the Steelers are as an underdog, a perfect 5-0 outright this season, because the Lions are in the other marquee matchup in that 4:25 p.m. Eastern time window, and they're just a slight 1.5-point home favorite against the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo looking to bounce back after one of the most offensive, not offensive, offensive in terms of scoring production games we have seen in the history of the NFL against the LA Rams this previous Sunday.
Yeah, I like Detroit in this game. That's tough, man. I am assuming Buffalo's not going to go all the way back home and then fly to Detroit. I'm guessing they're going from LA to Detroit right now, but that's a tough spot for Buffalo. You played the short week, semi-short Sunday night game, in snow and everything else, blizzard. Then you fly all the way to Los Angeles, play a great game, back and forth, and nearly win it in the end, if not for the head coach screwing up on his timeouts. And now you got to go to Detroit and play another monster game. I thought they would beat the Rams, but I don't think they're going to beat the Lions. I would be really, really impressed. I mean, I still don't think Buffalo is that good. I really don't. I give them all the credit in the world for what they've done, but I think the Lions are the better team. And getting Detroit, it's down to 1.5 some circles here. It was 2.5 yesterday, I saw.
Yeah.
1.5 down in some places. I like Detroit at home. I mean, it's amazing. I don't know what the Lions need to do to get all kind of respect. I mean, that should be a 3.5 point spread, right? I mean, 2 great teams. Lions as the home team, should be getting the benefit of the doubt. That's generally, the consensus is 3 points. So you'd make it from pick'em, maybe Lions -1 to Lions -4 or 3.5 at least 3, and it's not the case. So I like Detroit in the game.
It's really interesting, Scott, because a lot of people looked at the Bills a week ago, making that long trip to L.A. after already wrapping up their 5th consecutive AFC East title and thinking it might be a trap spot, or at least a good spot for the Rams to win a game that they must. It turned out to be correct. I wouldn't say Buffalo looked lazy or out of it by any means, scoring 42 points, and had they got the football back in regulation, probably would have won the football game. But now the odds makers are looking at the Bills like this is a classic bounce-back spot where they're going to take out their anger from losing a tightly contested, high-scoring, and dramatic game on Detroit. I'm not so sure. Like you, what I will say, what concerns me for the Lions is the litany of injuries they have on the defensive side of the football. We know about some of the ones that have been long-term this year, like Aiden Hutchinson, but Aleem McNeil injured early in the second half against Green Bay this past Thursday. Brian Branch, their outstanding second-year safety, limped off the field late in the game. The Packers, who only scored 7 at the break, scored 24 in the second half, taking advantage of those injuries. And Buffalo has scored at least 30 in 7 straight games. Scott, the total is 54.5. It's not like we're getting a discount in terms of the offense expected in the Motor City, but I do think we will see some points on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the highest total we've seen this season. Could be wrong, but I don't remember too many higher than that. We've had some 50s, but I don't think we've had any 55s. Maybe, but that's pretty close to it. And that's why I just double checked there. I wanted to see what the number was. Like 55 or 54.5. I'm kind of hoping maybe like 49.5, like it was with the Rams, 50.5. 54.5. Yikes. But who could bet the under? You're right. With all those defensive issues, the Lions' second half against the Bears, they looked awful. So you got to figure. You said it, 30 points, 7 straight games. Unless for whatever reason Buffalo doesn't show, and I don't think that's going to be the case. But I'd be hard pressed to see them not hit 55 points. But a majority of the 50s do go under. I will tell you that versus going over.
Yeah. Yeah, Scott, when we look at Detroit, they've played in a bunch of games with a total of 50-plus this season, as they did on Thursday night against the Packers. That game went over. It was the 6th time for Detroit this year with a total at 50-plus. They've actually gone under in 4 of 6. Scott, speaking of the Rams, who did edge out Buffalo on Sunday with an offensive performance that everybody has been waiting for L.A. to put up, with Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, all orchestrated by Matthew Stafford. They are playing on that short week Thursday night game in San Francisco, and it is critical. The 49ers at home in Santa Clara, 2.5-point home favorite against the Rams, total at 48.5. We'll talk about that game and how it starts off week number 15 around the NFL on the other side of the break. A huge game for both teams in the NFC West, their playoff lives, and of course the old rivalry renewed between Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. More from that game in Santa Clara on Thursday, up next.
Yeah, it's getting cooler.
Football weather is here.
Stay tuned for all the latest odds, strategies, and info. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Police arrested a suspect on Monday in the brazen Manhattan killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg.
This update brought to you by Verizon. Authorities say a quick-thinking McDonald's employee in Pennsylvania alerted authorities to a customer who was found with a weapon, mask, and writings linking him to the ambush. The suspect, identified as 26-year-old Luigi Mangione, had a gun believed to be the one used in last Wednesday's shooting of Thompson, as well as writings suggesting anger with corporate America. A Manhattan jury has cleared Daniel Penny of criminal wrongdoing in the chokehold death of Jordan Neely on a crowded subway. Panelists acquitted Penny of criminally negligent homicide, which could have put him behind bars for up to 4 years, in Neely's chokehold death aboard a crowded Uptown F train in May 2023. Manslaughter, the top charge against Penny, was tossed on Friday after jurors twice said they couldn't reach a unanimous verdict.
I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Hard to believe that Christmas is only a couple of weeks away, right? But there's still plenty of time to find incredible gift deals because Macy's Friends and Family Sale is happening now. What does that mean? It means when you use your coupon or Macy's card, you can take an extra 30% off, just like Friends and Family can. That's 30% off the best holiday gifts, 30% off the best designer brands, 30% off what's trending right now. It's just this week, it's just what you were looking for, and it's only at Macy's. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
Oh no, my phone.
Hear that? It's the sound of a skater dropping her phone and smashing it on the ice. Yep, it's definitely broken. But at Verizon, we got you. This Black Friday, trade in any phone, any condition from one of our top brands and get a new Samsung Galaxy S24 Plus on Unlimited Ultimate and Watch 7 and Tab S9 FE 5G. That's up to $1,900 in value. So you'll save big on 3 great gifts. Hurry into Verizon this Black Friday. Service plan required for Watch and Tab. Up to $1,900 value based on phone, watch, and tablet. Trade in and additional terms apply. See Verizon.com for details.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important.
That's where we come in.
SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning
more often.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Week 15 never far away as a new week is ready to begin around the National Football League. And Scott, you alluded to it earlier, this Week 15 slate, whether it's Thursday, a full Sunday slate, or a doubleheader of Monday Night Football to end out the week, a lot of good games. And that's how it starts. Thursday night in Santa Clara, San Francisco 49ers hosting the Los Angeles Rams, a critical divisional duel to start off our fourth to final week of this NFL regular season. The Niners snapping a 3-game slide on Sunday in impressive fashion against the Chicago Bears. San Fran now 6-7. We talked about the great scoring offensive game between the Rams and the Bills. LA won it 7-6. Now the record for Los Angeles. The Rams just a game back of Seattle. They beat the Seahawks in their first matchup this season. The 49ers, Scott, in a little bit more of a precarious situation. Sure, only trailing the Seahawks by 2 games with still 4 remaining. But the thing that is more damning for the 49ers than the 6-7 overall record, well below expectation entering the year, is the 1-3 mark in the NFC West. If San Francisco is going to see the postseason, it's probably through the division, which means Thursday is a must for the 49ers.
Yeah, it's realistically almost an elimination game because if they lose this game, they're 2 behind, and then they would lose the head-to-head tiebreaker with the Rams because they lost to them earlier this year. So realistically, and now you'd be behind Seattle as well. You know, the season would be over for them. Now they've controlled this series over the years. You know, there's always a positive and negative, right? I'll give you the positive for the 49ers. Since 2008, 23-10-1. Pretty good, including 9-3 the last 5.5 seasons. So what could be the negative? Well, the negative is, Ben, they've lost the last 2, including this year, to the Rams. So, what good are all those previous numbers if these last 2 meetings it's turned out to be a Los Angeles Rams victory? In both games in which they rallied, and last year, don't get me started on that one because that cost me a major, major pool. Because I had the Rams winning that, or the 49ers winning that one. So, but bottom line is it's do or die. You know what? Teams like this, they show some glimpses, like the Bengals last night. They're going to show some promise. They're going to get people hookered back in. But in reality, you know what? Nice win over the Bears. The coach's fired system. I thought Chicago was going to come out and play much better. They didn't. So I'll give them credit. But ultimately, there's just something wrong with the San Francisco team. I think the Rams win again.
And I think, Scott, mainly for San Francisco, it's the injuries, right? Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason placed on injured reserve entering Week 14. Isaac Guerrero, the rookie out of Louisville via Wisconsin, now gets injured late in the second half against the Bears, had to be walked off into the locker room. His status on a short turnaround is slightly uncertain at this moment. The Niners are getting healthier on defense. What I mean by that, Scott, is the guys are back at practice or about to be back at practice, like Nick Bosa, like Dre Greenlaw, like Talanoa Hufanga, but they're not game ready yet, or at least were not a week ago. Might they be now in a short week as well? That's my concern. Scott, first game between these two teams was in LA week number 3. The Rams won outright as nearly a touchdown underdog, 27-24, well over a total of 44 and a half. And we are seeing here a couple of strong trends for these two teams in their spread positions entering this game. San Francisco, 6-7 this year. They've been booked as a favorite in 11 of 13 games, all 6 wins as the favorite side. They have covered in 5 of 6. All 5 covers for San Francisco in their victories. They have gone over a total, scoring at least 30 points. Meanwhile, the Rams, an underdog 7 times this year, 3-4 both against the spread and outright. All 3 covers, thus outright wins. Total over for Los Angeles as well. Total is 48.5. It's a short week. Scott, if this game was played on Sunday, even up in Northern California, I would take the Rams even if they were an underdog. But the fact that they are turning around on a short week, it's not a 4 trip, it's not cross country, it's not even out of the state of California, just up to San Francisco. It's just a lot for a team that expended what felt like all of its energy to beat Buffalo 44-42 in that thrilling game, trying to turn around on a short week in a tough spot in a critical divisional matchup.
Yeah, it is. I will admit that it is. Just take out the game from 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, against the Miami Dolphins when their offense looked so putrid. Yeah. So it's like, what have you done for me lately? We picture, the Rams going up and down the football field, right? I mean, it's as simple as that. Because of what you've done for me lately. I will tell you as I turn my light back on in my studio. Here are the numbers that are alarming to me, Ben. Deebo Samuel, on the season, 12 games, he only has 40 receptions. And this is with a team that's been injured and needed someone to step up. How about the last 4 weeks? You realize the last 4 weeks, he has not had more than 22 yards receiving in any game. 22 this last week, 20, 21, and 22. I mean, for a guy that, that whined and complained and got a big fat contract and everything else, he's got to be hurt. He must be also hurt. Add him to the list because he's a much better player than what we've seen really this entire year, but this last month in particular. So I like the under, as crazy as it sounds after watching, the Rams play a game which we had almost 90 points scored. But I that rarely happens back-to-back weeks. So I would play the under in the game. Yep. But I do think the Rams end up finding a way to win.
Yeah. Listen, for me, I hope so. I bet the Rams a few weeks ago at plus 290 to win the NFC West. Frankly, whether it's the Seahawks, the Rams, the Cardinals, or the 49ers, I think the playoff lives of these four teams in the division is best suited by winning said NFC West divisional crown. The Rams are now plus 160, only a game back of Seattle. But, Scott, you want to win a division, you must win your divisional games. The Niners this week on the road, week 15. Then they have the Jets in between on the road before they end the year at home against the Cardinals and the Seahawks. That's it for the Rams right then and there. I got to step out of the studio. We got some guests coming in for an interview, so Scott Wetzel will take you home on the other side of the break, live right here on Football Full Circle. More to come after this commercial break.
The boys of summer become the champions of fall.
The World Series is on its way.
And SportsGrid brings you every angle. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Moneyline at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
All right, welcome back. It is Football Full Circle here on the grid. Yours truly taking you the rest of the way here. Just looking at the schedule for this week, as we were talking with Ben before, it really is. This is like if you were going to have a picture-perfect week for the NFL to have their weeks be everything the same, this would be it, right? You got a terrific Thursday night game, maybe not over the top, but certainly, an interesting one, Rams and San Francisco. We're clearly there's something on the line for both football teams. And then you got some dud, 1 o'clock games, but each game for the most part has at least one team that's playing for something, right? And that's all you can really hope for. You want to avoid the games we got last week, Tennessee and Jacksonville and Giants and the New Orleans Saints. But this week you got Washington and the Saints. All right, at least Washington's involved. You got Cincinnati and Tennessee, and say what you want about the Bungles, as we like to call them. Them winning last night kept them mathematically alive. You got Miami and Houston, same thing. Chances are pretty good that the Dolphins aren't going to be, doing anything special this year. They're probably going to get eliminated next week or two, but they're alive and they're taking on Houston, which obviously is playing for a whole lot. Kansas City, Cleveland. Dallas and Carolina might be the 1 o'clock game. Well, you got Jets and Jacksonville. Let me scroll down just a little bit more. All right, so we got 2. But even Dallas, no matter what Dallas does, they're always interesting. And you know what? After watching Carolina play these last few weeks, I'm, believe it or not, interested in watching Bryce Young play a little bit more. He has gotten better and better and better. I don't think they offer comeback player of the year in the NFL. I know they do in baseball, right? Starting to think about it. They do in the NBA. Do they do that in the NFL? Try to remember. But, if so, I got to tell you, Bryce Young would be at the top of my list. I mean, nothing was expected out of this guy. And from what we saw from him, he would be like the comeback player of the year from this year alone, let alone what he did last year. But he's actually turned into a halfway decent quarterback. I mean, so I would be curious just to watch that game. And believe it or not, this is the first time in 33, 34 games. I have it as 34, but I read 33 somewhere else, but I keep my own notes. This is the first time in 34 straight games Carolina is actually a favorite. How about that? When you start digging the holes to see how deep the Dallas Cowboys season can go, throw that, right at the bottom of the pile. They are now an underdog to a team that has been an underdog themselves for 33, 34 straight games. Now the Panthers are a 2.5-point underdog. You want to bet it goes to 3 by the time they kick off? So that brings some intrigue. Jets and Jaguars, same type of thing. Maybe you can make the case. It's the Jets. You want to see them implode even more. What is Aaron Rodgers going to do wrong? What are the Jets going to do wrong to blow this football game? So maybe that has their own intrigue. Baltimore at the New York Giants, again, at least the Ravens are playing for something. And then you got the 4 o'clock games, which are all, at least halfway decent. Denver and Indianapolis, huge game. We talked about that with the 49ers. Needed to win Thursday, otherwise their season for all intents and purposes is over. Same thing with the Indianapolis Colts. In fact, mathematically, it probably would be over because if the Colts, depending on what the Ravens do, then they figure to beat the Giants. So chances are pretty good if the Colts lose to the Broncos, they'll be eliminated because they would be 3 back. And they would lose the head-to-head tiebreaker, obviously. So a lot on that game. That's a pretty good game. New England and Arizona. Arizona's at least in the mix in the NFC West, laying only 5.5 against the New England Patriots, a 3-win football team. You're at home, Arizona. You're fighting for your playoff lives, and you're a less than touchdown favorite against one of the worst teams in the NFL. Well, what does that tell you about what the boys in Vegas think of Arizona? Chargers and Buccaneers, really good game. Not great, but, really good. You got a division leader in Tampa Bay now, and you got the Chargers, fighting for their playoff lives. Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, Ben and I talked about that. Obviously, that's a huge game. Little surprised that line is 5.5. Well, I tell you, Mike Tomlin's against the spread numbers are phenomenal. And for him to be getting, 5.5. I mean, think about this. I just said it, right? Arizona, which listen, I'm not a big Arizona fan, but they're certainly better than the New England Patriots, are a 5.5-point favorite over the Patriots at home. And yet Philadelphia, which, you can make the case Pittsburgh is nearly as good. I think Pittsburgh to Philadelphia is a lot closer than New England to Arizona, right? And it's the same 5.5-point spread. Kind of weird. Hard not to like the Steelers there. Right? I mean, and then you got Detroit and Buffalo, which obviously, that speaks for itself. Green Bay, Seattle is the Sunday night game. Not great, but halfway decent. It's the two Monday nighters: Minnesota, Chicago, and then Falcons and Raiders. Falcons and Raiders. That's really the dud. But still, at least the Falcons are fighting for something. Football Full Circle on a Tuesday. We'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy your day, folks.
Now you've done it. You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.